Okay.
Greetings. I'm Reverend Kiyama Rahman, and I'm the Executive Director of Sister Souurce Incorporated, an organization that is devoted to the upliftment and bringing visibility and resources to Black Unitarian Universalist women and girls. And I'm excited today to share some information with you with a guest that we have with us, Marva Williams. Marva is a member of the Presidential Search Committee. And I'm sort of new to learning about the inner workings of some of the UUA, the Unitarian Universalist Association. So I really was very, very pleased, Marva, when I found out about your presence on the Presidential Search Committee. Welcome, and I want to ask you a number of questions. But before we get started, can you just say a little bit about what made you say yes to the Presidential Search Committee's request and how that even came about?
So several years ago, probably 2 or maybe even 3 years ago, I received a phone call from a former minister of mine in Chicago who's now moved to New Haven, Connecticut. And he asked if I would be interested in serving on the Presidential Search Committee. And I was shocked to be receiving this phone call. Um, and I thought about it and I said, yes, I'd like to do that. I'd been on another UUA committee several years ago, Socially Responsible Investing Committee, and enjoyed that a lot. And so thought, oh, what the heck? Yeah. The role of the president is so integral to many of the projects and programs of our faith. And I thought, yeah, I'd like to do that.
And so once you accepted, was there an orientation? Was there a way to get you on board in terms of the expectations and the goals of the Presidential Search Committee?
Well, there was a meeting with, well, several things. So our committee formed, and we had several meetings with the current president of the UUA, Susan, and we also met with previous members of the search committee 6 years ago or 5 years ago. And we also talked to UUA staff. So that was a great way of learning about the process. And then we actually developed our own process in sort of how we would conduct the search. And we developed a covenant, which was, it was a great process. And we've come back and revisited that covenant several times.
Okay. It's my understanding that the search committee met with a number of UU stakeholders, Drum, Trust, Blue. Were there any takeaways from those consultations that you're able to share with us?
Sure. So I actually met with Drum myself, and we've also met with the religious educators, youth programmers, several other affiliated groups to the UUA. And I think the predominant message for all of them was we have established a good working relationship with the UUA. We enjoy our autonomy. We appreciate support from the UUA. Just sort of don't get in our way was sort of the major message that I got, that we don't want major changes to procedures and goals. We're well on our way of dealing with some of the, very challenging issues of the UUA, including race and sexual orientation, diversity, and other issues, and including disability rights. So let's continue the good work
Mm-hmm.
of the UUA and its affiliated groups.
Okay. Okay. So what is the relationship of the Presidential Search Committee with the nominating committee?
So the nominating committee actually was involved in establishing the Presidential Search Committee.
Okay.
So some of us were nominated, others were oh, I can't remember what the process was. I believe some may have been identified by the board of the UUA. But other than that, we are two separate committees. We don't have actually any involvement with the nominating committee at all. Now, there is a member of the UUA board who has attended our meetings in the past to let us know about various issues going on with the UUA and to talk about the sort of procedures for establishing our nominees for the president. But other than that, we work totally independently.
Oh, okay. So help me clarify my confusion. So there was a nominating committee that worked to identify members of the Presidential Search Committee. Is there a nominating committee for presidential candidates?
We are it. The
Okay.
Presidential Search
Okay.
Committee is that committee.
Okay, that clarifies my confusion. So given that July 15th was the deadline for what's the word I'm looking
Applications.
for? Applications, thank you, for interested candidates. You all are now concerned with reviewing those applications and identifying at least two candidates.
That's right.
But is it limited to two, or it can be more than two? But
it can be more than two.
Okay.
And you're right, the applications were due in mid-July, and we've been in the process of reviewing those applications. And each candidate submitted a recording of a sermon and other sorts of application materials. We developed a matrix to evaluate each candidate. And we had some very, very lively conversations, as you can imagine, about each of the candidates. Now, there's another way that the president can be selected for the UUA. So there's the nominating committee, which goes through applications and makes that selection to the Board of Trustees. But there's also the ability of candidates to petition to run for the UUA. So there are two different ways for candidates to come forward.
And why would a candidate choose to petition, given that the requirements are so much more stringent?
Yeah, that's a good question. You may know that there is one candidate who has made his candidacy known, and that he plans to be to go through the whole petitioning process. And his reason for that is he believes that the nominating committee process is undemocratic, I guess is the best way to put that. And so he's decided, and there may be others who will also petition.
And they have until the end of the year. Is that their deadline for petitions?
I actually don't know.
Okay. See, it seems like I remember that, but again, my memory, if I don't write it down and I'm not looking at it. So given that you all are now reviewing applications, can you say a little bit about what you all are looking for in general?
Sure. So I think, there are a couple major points, and then I'll get into the specifics. One is that, you know, past presidents have been ordained ministers. And we, with the Presidential Search Committee, let people know that we were open to candidates who were not ministers. So that's one, I think, significant factor.
Okay.
The second is that we learned that there would be co-applicants for the presidential search. And the bylaws of the UUA does not include or does not allow co-presidents. So when we learned that there would be at least one co-applicant application, we talked to the UUA board about that and asked them to develop some sense of whether those applications would be accepted, I guess is the best word. And so we're still in the process of learning from the UUA board whether that's going to be allowed. But I think that, as you see more and more co-ministers and other positions, there are 3 leaders of the Church of the Larger Fellowship now. I think that the idea of having that kind of collaboration will become more prevalent. And I think the UUA needs to decide and develop guidelines around that. So those are the 2 major issues.
Okay.
The others are experience with working for a board and understanding the mechanics of a board. Fundraising and stewardship is another major area of concern. That is a major role for the president of the UUA. The other is developing collaborations outside of the UUA and working with other church leaders on justice issues and other challenges. There is also some attention to racial justice and diversity, inclusion, and past experience working on those issues, and some discussion about how the individual went about that. And then, even though the candidates do not need to be ministers, communication is a big part of being the president of the UUA. So we asked each of the applicants to submit a recording or a video of a sermon or a speech that they gave. And in addition to that, looking at their applications and actually reading some of their other sermons gave us a very good sense of their style of communication. So that's another important aspect.
Okay. That really helps to give us a understanding of the behind the scenes and what takes place, what you all as a search committee are looking for. So given the requirements, given the applicants' skill sets and their experiences, what do you think will be some of the issues that will be debated once the candidates are identified? And when the search committee presents candidates, does that then move to the public campaigning and eventually to the elections process?
Well, I think that the major issue for debate will occur if we nominate co-applicants. I
Ah,
think there will
that's right.
be lots of discussion about the division of responsibilities,
Mm,
the salaries, who has actual, legal responsibilities or accountability for the UUA. So I think that that'll be a major issue of discussion. Um, in terms of the process from here, our presidential search committee will be finalizing our nominations, and we will submit those to the UUA board, and then they will um, review those nominations. We are not expecting any major changes, based on our nominations. And then each candidate will have about a month after they're notified that they've been nominated. They'll have about a month to organize the campaign for the president.
mm,
And that's a lot of work, as you can imagine.
mm,
It involves setting up websites, fundraising, figuring out communication plans, um, contacting affiliate groups, contacting congregations. I mean, it's a huge responsibility. So the campaign will start probably in late November or December of this year,
mm,
and carry on through the winter and the spring of next year. And then at General Assembly in Pittsburgh next year, there will be the election of the president.
mm,
And that will be candidates that have been nominated by the Presidential Search Committee, as well as those who petition to
mm.
run for president.
Okay, okay. It seems in my mind that the campaign is not only is it a complex process, but it sounds like it's a very expensive process. Has anyone ever averaged out what the average cost of a campaign is, to determine if that's prohibitive in any way to potential candidates that might really be qualified and bring some leadership that we're in need of?
That's a good point. That's an excellent point. Not to my knowledge.
Mm,
And yes, it is expensive. Some candidates actually will hire staff to assist them with their campaigns and to develop materials, communication materials, and to develop sort of a platform for their candidacy. And yes, it can be very expensive.
mm,
However, um, one of the major responsibilities we've discussed of the UUA president is to actually do fundraising
mm,
and stewardship. So, I think it's important for candidates to not only to have sort of previous experience with that, but to also demonstrate through their campaigns that they're able to raise money for their campaign.
mm, mhm. Okay. I remember in the early 90s when I came into Unitarian Universalism, there were two women running. Diane Miller was one, and I'm trying to remember who the other individual is. I can see her, but I can't call her name. I'm raising this because our current president is our first female president. So white, heterosexual, and we've had a Black heterosexual male, and a Latinx heterosexual male. I wonder what predictions we could make for our next president. Do we dare make any predictions about who our next president might be in terms of identities?
Well, I could tell you that the candidate pool is very, very diverse.
Mm.
In terms of, cisgendered and other gendered people, race, sex, whether, they're experienced ministers or lay leaders. Age is also very diverse.
That's an important one because unless I'm mistaken, I think our current president may be our youngest president thus far. And I meant to ask you if age factors into this. Have you gotten applicants on the younger spectrum in terms of the age continuum?
We have.
Oh, good.
So
good.
that's been very interesting.
Yes.
And I should say, I forgot to mention this when we were talking about qualifications for the president. There's been a great deal of concern about some of our youth programming at the UUA. And, I've experienced this sort of anecdotally in congregations, but it's sort of typical for young people to go through our religious education programming, and then somehow we can't retain them. Many of them leave.
Yeah.
And so that's actually when we talk to the staff and others involved in youth programming, that was something that they brought up. And so that's actually another area of concern. And we have asked candidates to talk about how, so what they think the challenges are in terms of retaining youth and how we might overcome some of those challenges.
Great. It sounds like it's going to be a really exciting presidential campaign, given some of what I'm hearing you say. I'm wondering, as a sort of a final question or moving toward our conclusion, if you have any recommendation, any advice for BIPOCs, Black and Indigenous people of color, who are looking to move into leadership roles, to be more active and involved, what that might look like for them?
Oh, that's such a great question.
And you can take it from a general. It doesn't have to be specifically do this, this, and that, but in terms of their recognizing that this involvement will allow you to acquire some skill sets and some leadership experiences, this kind of experience with this kind of, that's sort of what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's a great question. Of all the people on the search committee, I have the least experience with sort of the inner workings of the UUA. Many of the other members of the committee have served on the board. They've served on previous searches. They've been involved in many of the affiliate groups, been leaders of the affiliate groups. So I have the least experience with the workings of the UUA, which I think, in some ways is actually an asset.
It is.
I don't have preconceived notions about people or previous experience with the candidates.
But it also means that you evidently acquired your leadership experiences on the congregational level and maybe even the regional level. And that's where they would be starting. They wouldn't be starting at the UUA. They would be starting in their congregation.
True.
you know, in various committees, maybe even serving on the board. Mentoring would be a very important piece, whether it's with the minister, president of the board, or someone who is in a leadership role that could really mentor them in terms of leadership. And I could see that leading to some interaction and involvement with the UUA. And maybe in the interim, also with some of the groups like Blue or Drum, Trust, those organizations also, because of their connections, provide a lot of leadership opportunities. So I'm really seeing, I really think that the person or persons that identified you recognize something very important, and that is beginning to look on the congregational level for leaders, up and coming leaders, that they can bring into leadership roles within the UUA on a more national level. So I think that your whole trajectory has been helpful for people to hear that's how it begins. And
yeah, you're absolutely right. I was very involved in my church in Chicago. I was a member for over 20 years and served on the board and on various committees. And I actually made the connection to the Committee on Socially Responsible Investing, the other national UUA committee that I was a member of. Because a member of our church was on the board of directors of the UUA. And I got to know her, and she said, you know, you'd be really good as, you know, thought about. And so that's how I became a member of that group. And then our minister who, or, you know, prior minister who nominated me or who suggested me for the presidential search committee. When he came to our church, I was actually the chair of the board at that time, and was involved in various other committees. So I think networking is a really important part of, you know, getting your name out there and being willing to say yes. To you know, sometimes very difficult and challenging processes. I mean, you know, this search committee is very time intensive, as you can imagine. I mean, I'm spending 10 to 15 hours a week.
So it's like a part-time job.
It is like a part-time job. And you know, I want to be a productive, useful member of that committee. And so, you know, we trade jobs and, you know, volunteer for various responsibilities like checking references and so on of candidates. And, you know, if you are a super busy person, this may not be the best committee to serve on. But, you know, the other thing I just want to mention is, you know, because of COVID, so many meetings are now on Zoom.
Yeah.
And so in other times, you know, we might be meeting in person and traveling to Boston, or meeting candidates in person. And, you know, because of Zoom, you know, there's more convenience, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. More accessibility. Yeah.
Yes. Accessibility.
Well, Marva, this has been absolutely fascinating. I want to thank you for taking the time to talk with me about the Presidential Search Committee. It certainly has enlightened me, and I believe that our listening audience is going to be better informed as we move through this whole process, and will be prepared for the elections, be prepared for the debates that are going to take place. So thank you so very, very much. And I look forward to being in communication with you in the future.
Thank you. It was great to meet you.
And likewise, take care.
So I will